a very warm welcome. You're watching Times Now Live. I'm Pratibha Chandran. Thank you for joining us this evening. A lot has changed in the last 24 hours. We've witnessed a dramatic escalation that threatens global stability and signals the risk of wider conflict. The region has effectively entered a phase of regional war following Operation Epic Fury by the United States and Operation Roaring Lion by Israel. A joint military operation that, according to reports, resulted in the killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Now, sources say that U.S. and Israeli forces used intelligence gathered during the 12-day conflict last year to track Khamenei's movements and launched the strike when Iran's top leadership was believed to be assembled at one location under one roof. Now, on the ground, the military situation continues to escalate rapidly. Israel is carrying out a second day of strikes that are aimed at establishing air superiority. Israel Defense Forces claim to have killed as many as 40 senior Iranian commanders and destroyed multiple air defense systems. Let's get you breaking updates now coming in. The U.S. President Donald Trump has told The Atlantic in a phone call that he plans new talks with the Iranian regime. He has said, and I quote, "They want to talk and I have agreed to talk, so I will be talking to them." So this is a big breakthrough claim that has come in from the U.S. President Donald Trump, who has said that Iran wants to be back at the negotiating table, and he says that he is ready to speak to them. So the U.S. says that it will be speaking to Iran. So a diplomatic engagement likely, with Donald Trump now confirming that Iran wants to talk, so Trump will be speaking to the Iran regime. Introducing guests joining us this evening for a better understanding of the situation as it unfolds. A lot of fast-paced developments taking place. We have Abhijit, Ayer, Mitra, Senior Fellow of IPCS, joining us on the broadcast. Angie Wong, Miami GOP Committee, and also joining us on the broadcast, Lieutenant General Asit Mistry, defense expert, and former MP Knesset. We also have Inet Wilf joining us on the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. To all joining us this evening, I want to begin with Abhijit, Ayer, Mitra on what is expected now, because Trump in the latest has gone on to say that he is ready for talks. He says that Iran has expressed its willingness to talk, but the question still remains on how the negotiations will take place. Where will the talks come from within Iran? What do you expect now as Trump says we're ready to talk?
I suspect it's a phone call that he's talking about, but irrespective. The issue is there have been many talks in the past. The problem has always been that there isn't a single agreement Iran has signed that it hasn't cheated on. Every single time there is some hidden facility that comes up, some violation that comes up, and it has been incessant. Now, what exactly are they going to offer that is new that they haven't offered before? Look, the Omani foreign minister said that they'd offered a full denuclearization, complete removal of all fissile material, etc., etc. The problem then becomes, what do you do after that? What if they set up a new facility? What if they cheat again? I really don't know how Iran is going to break that, because break the deadlock on that, because essentially this has come down to a situation of zero trust.
Okay, so zero trust is what we're looking at. Is that how Israel is also viewing it? Mr. Enet, you know, the way things have been going on now, Israel has also said time and again that these are preemptive strikes, that this is Israel's right to strike Iran because of the threat that it possessed?
Yes, I mean, Iran had a policy since the birth of the Islamic Republic that said death to Israel, death to America. So this is the consequences when your entire policy and worldview is not about building for your people. It's not about improving your citizens' lives. You're willing to endanger everything to have death to Israel, death to America. Those are the consequences. Now, they want to negotiate once more. They've done it in the past. But under the presidency of Donald Trump, he's made it very clear what are the expectations of Iran. And it's not clear that the Islamic Republic is in a position to say yes to the American demands. So other than buying a bit more time, it's not really clear for what.
Okay, all right. Angie Wong, on your expertise on how this is going forward, how is the Republican Party viewing the military strikes, and also around the world as well? There has been no international consensus on this. How are these strikes being viewed in the United States?
Well, first off, my thoughts and prayers go to the families of the 3 service members of the U.S. military who just lost their lives this morning. They were struck by potentially an airstrike by Iran. So we see now that there's going to be killings from both sides. So I think these breakthrough talks between Iran and the U.S. are going to be very, very fruitful, because now there's casualties. Now, Jared Kushner, along with Steve Witkoff, they've been waiting around in Geneva to have serious talks. Last week they were there. They were just waiting around in a waiting room, and there was nothing productive. So now it seems like it's been escalated, and there might be some serious talk. So I think these are good signs that both sides are willing to engage. Now, here is the crux of it. The U.S. wants Iran to completely drop their nuclear development program. I don't know if that is going to be something that Iran is even willing to do. They have argued multiple times that we need this for civilian use, but the U.S. wants it completely gone. I think that's where we're going to know which side is being serious if they're willing to walk it backwards. So I think that's what we're looking forward to, seeing signals of, that Iran is willing to meet the U.S.'s demands. Okay, all right. In fact, we have breaking updates now coming in. The Iranian offensive is now continuing in Qatar. That's where breaking updates are coming from. Iran has struck U.S. military bases in Qatar yet again. So the U.S. military bases are continuing to be targeted. Visuals are coming in as well from the airbase. And Iran's offensive is now continuing. And you've previously as well spoken about diplomatic talks. But is that a possibility at all? Because Abhijit and Mitra also spoke about a trust deficit. The intent has been very clear coming in from Iran as well. Are negotiations really possible? Who is that directed to? It is to you, from the United States. And you have often spoken about talks with Iran as well. But do you think, owing to the situation currently, it is a possibility even now? Yes, so for the last 3 weeks, we've seen military hardware move into the region. That was all for posturing from the Pentagon and the Trump administration to say, look, if you do not cooperate in these talks, in diplomatic talks, then we're going to have to strike you. Now, President Trump, again, extended that window for diplomatic talks for another 10 days recently, and he said, look, there's just no movement on there. We have no other choice but then to strike, which is what happened yesterday. Again, this morning, President Trump comes out and says, let's talk again. Are you ready to talk now? So he wants diplomacy first. He does not want to see any more soldiers being killed over this, or even civilians. We're starting to learn that there's been several civilian casualties involved in the last 48 hours or so. So I think that he always wants to have diplomacy first. It's whether or not they're going to be fruitful, or, as your other guest said, is this just going to be another time delay? Okay, Ms. Wilf, are we looking at Israel and the United States being prepared, if at all there could be any support that could be coming in from China and Russia? Is that a possibility at all? And are United States and Israel prepared for it?
Support from Russia is a possibility, although distant. There seems to be a major Ukrainian counteroffensive. They're boggled down. They have been weakened. We don't discuss the numbers as much, but the numbers of Russians killed are in the hundreds of thousands, some even say over 1 million. China has made it very clear that it will provide some kind of financial support, supplies, but it is not likely to want to engage, and certainly in a regime that seems to be collapsing. And China, I think, China, unlike others, I mean, it doesn't really have an interest in supporting the Islamic Republic. It's not ideologically wedded to the idea of Iran being ruled by this kind of Islamic clerical regime. So I think maybe Russia a bit, doubted. China probably will sit it out and provide mostly minimal symbolic support.
Lieutenant General Asit Mistry, is that how you see it going as well? And what about the impact on axis of resistance, especially considering now you have the supreme leader officially eliminated, the top leadership of Iran completely eliminated?
See, this regime since October the 7th, 2023, has overestimated its own capabilities and underestimated the capabilities, resolve, and risk-taking abilities of its adversaries. And as a result, has been suffering serious degradation over the last 2.5 years or so. Today, it is in a situation where it is no longer in control of its own airspace. Most of its regional proxies have been practically decimated or seriously degraded. Its own resistance capabilities is gradually getting eroded day by day. The longer the onslaught from US and Israel continues, it is going to suffer more and more damage. There has already been a decapitation strike on its top leadership. Now, the focus, I presume, would be on degrading the missile launch capabilities of Iran. So the longer this persists, it is a law of diminishing return as far as the Iran regime is concerned. And to expect Russia, which is so heavily involved for over 4 years in war with Ukraine, for them to give any kind of military assistance to Iran at this stage is quite difficult. China, as another panelist has already said, is unlikely to provide any direct military aid. Yes, there may be a little bit of a political support. Other than that, I don't foresee any kind of intervention by any of the members of the axis of resistance.
Okay. But given Iran's capability, how long do you think this resistance or the retaliation from Iran is going to continue? We've already seen they've hit multiple US bases in the Gulf region. They've also hit several civilian pockets within Dubai, in Abu Dhabi as well, some places in Doha as well. How long do you think this is going to continue from Iran's side?
See, it is a matter of an existential struggle as far as the regime is concerned. So they are trying to do their best. But how effective is their resistance? While they've been firing missiles, at Israel as well as the other members, of the Gulf GCC, whether it is UAE, Qatar, Oman, or Saudi Arabia. But how effective have these strikes been? Yes, recently I think Israel has lost some people, which is an unfortunate development, which is most unlike, normally the way the Israeli air defense system works. Probably an, one or lucky return strike that has happened.
Okay.
But gradually this capability to hit civilian targets is going to get eroded. And thereafter they'll have no choice but to compromise, either to survive or there will be also a movement from the people. I'm sure the US has got some kind of network that is going on. Today, you have the cyber capability, you have the information warfare capability to influence people to rise. So that there are lots of possibilities still available.
Okay, I want to speak about what could happen next to Iran, what the endgame would be. But before that, just to rewind the clock a bit on and talking about how this entire operation had been launched as well, I want to get a perspective on what was the kind of work that went behind it. Ms. Wilf, was it in Iran's plan all through the months as well, even as the negotiations were going on, that the negotiations can go on, yes, but the Supreme Leader, Khamenei, just cannot continue in Iran? Because the United States had also been very clear. Just a few months ago, we also had Trump very clearly say that the people of Iran should continue their resistance. He said help will come. At the time, there was no help from the United States. But had it been in the works all through, even when talks of negotiations were going on?
Yes, of course, an operation like that, you don't stop and start. You plan it all the time. We know that it already began to be planned after the last, what was called the 12-day war. It was planned as a contingency, not necessarily as something to carry out, but something that should be prepared. It was also known that the Islamic Republic was trying to rebuild some of its capabilities, especially with ballistic missiles. And there was, and I think the moment that really made the greatest difference is when the people of Iran went to the streets en masse, calling for the Islamic Republic to come down. We know that this has been a long process. I mean, the Islamic Republic has been more and more brutal and cruel and escalating and oppressing its people and their uprisings. But as we know from history, at one point, regimes that constantly escalate and brutalizing and keeping down their people ultimately fall. And I think seeing the courageous people of Iran in the streets demanding freedom from the Islamic Republic, I think made it at least possible that if the Khamenei and the heads of the Islamic Republic will be gone and the fear factor will be diminished, if the besiege, if the revolutionary guards could be somewhat weakened, then the people of Iran will know that this time around they can go to the streets and be safe from retaliation by their rulers.
In fact, the IDF has also stated that the strikes were a result of months of synchronized planning with the United States. And this was a physical meeting that was taking place. They struck and we're told the timing had also been changed. The initial plan was to strike at midnight in the dark, but that was also changed because of the physical meeting that was taking place. For a better understanding of how the operations were carried out, joining us on the broadcast is Noah Muzafi, former IDF employee and AI researcher from Israel. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a big mission carried out by Israel, and it came as a surprise to the world, but I'm sure this was in the works, very carefully being put in place with close synchronization with the United States for several months now.
Yes, hello again. Good evening from Israel. I don't know if you can hear, but I'm currently in the south. We can hear fire jets and helicopters above our heads since yesterday morning, keep on coming back from attacks in Iran. You can feel the war, even though I'm in the south and not in Tel Aviv where I live usually. You can feel the war today everywhere in each city in Israel. This attack has been planned for months now, like the correspondents before me has said. I think that the reason that the Americans have sent their ship battles, a lot of Air Force planes, and a lot of crew members that, again, we don't have the numbers, but massive forces from the U.S. have reached Israel for the past 2 months. This joint attack has been planned, I think that more than 2 months, if I can say. The Israeli people have known about this planned attack, or planned war, as we call it, because it's much more than just an attack. We'll talk later about how we actually feel it on the ground today. We have known about it for the past month and a half. And unlike the last attack in May, we had time to plan, and it didn't caught us by surprise.
Okay, and what is the situation there currently? You spoke about how it feels like the war is on. What is the situation there currently?
Yesterday morning, I spoke with you an hour after we got the first alert, and just, I think, minutes before everybody came into the bomb shelters. So yesterday, most of the Israel, you can hear the fire jets above my head now. Most of the civilians have spent their day inside bombing shelters, most of them. Again, you can hear the airplanes above my head now. In Tel Aviv, they haven't left the bomb shelters for most of the day, even during the night. Most of them sat in bomb shelters for almost 10 hours yesterday. In the rest of the country also.
Okay.
Tel Aviv has also suffered 2 direct hits on the ground, and we have casualties. We have reported 4 people died in Tel Aviv in the last 2 days, and we have many wounded. Sorry, this is how war sounds like, as I said. Very close to the houses. It's like that most of the day. In the city of Beit Shemesh, next to Jerusalem, not far from Jerusalem, we had a direct hit on a synagogue. Synagogue is the holy place of the Jewish people. We had the most brutal attack so far, direct hit. We have more than 20 people wounded, and reportedly we're going to have dozens of killed. They reported around 10 so far. I can only assume they're going to find more of the missing people. So the last 2 days have been brutal here. But I need to state this. Iran has fired more than 200 ballistic missiles and drones to Israel in the past day and a half. Most of those missiles, except 4 of them, were intercepted in the air by Israel's systems, special defense system called Iron Dome. This is something very special, and by the way, this is one of those systems are now being implemented in the Indian army. This is one of the reasons PM Modi came to visit Israel just last week. So our special defense system are keeping 99% of the Israeli people safe most of the time. Again, even though we know we have Iron Dome and more special defense system, most of the civilians here in Israel are staying inside the bomb shelters. Once they're going to get the alerts, we have alerts on our cell phones. I can show you after how it looks like. And also we have sirens in most of the countries. Today, only essential places were open. Schools are closed. Government places are closed. Only supermarkets who sell food and pharmacies were allowed to be open today. Again, you can hear more strikes above my head. I'm in the south of Israel. We have many bases here. This is how it sounds like.
Okay, these are some mind-boggling numbers you've spoken about. You spoke about 200 ballistic missiles in less than 24 hours that have been fired towards Israel. And there are clear indications that this could be long drawn. Is Israel prepared for it? Are the people of Israel prepared for it?
Again, I think that the people of Israel have suffered longer wars and operations with Iran. We have the 12 days one in May and June, which was very short but very brutal and very aggressive. We are prepared for a shorter one, but we also are prepared for 2 months if needed. I need to mention that the war, the 7th front war with Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Yemen, and more was just and has ended 4 months ago. 4 months ago. We have suffered almost 2 years of war, and the last operation, the last war in Iran, was happening as we still got missiles alerts and we had active war in those fronts. So having said that, we have less fronts to be worried about, but we are more optimistic this war will be shorter.
Okay.
And also the fact that this is a joint attack or a joint war or a joint operation with the Americans and more forces. Today, the Emirati, the UAE, has stated that they want to join forces because they have suffered direct hits in the Dubai airport, and 2 hotels at the Dubai Palm Islands have suffered direct hits as well yesterday.
Yes.
I think that if we're going to have joint forces from our allies in the Arab world, in the Middle East, like the UAE, Most chances is this war is going to be much more shorter and much more efficient.
Okay. Since you made a mention of Iron Dome and about the air defense systems in Israel, I also want to ask you, being a former IDF employee, you're somebody who has been in the IDF, but Iran also has a very strong air defense system. It has the S-400. I want to ask you, from your expertise, how do you think Israel was able to establish total air superiority?
The Israeli army and the Israeli Air Force is one of the best in the world. The numbers we have, the fact that every able civilians, at the age of 18 goes to the army. You know, I met my husband in the army. Most of my family members were officers. Some of my friends and family members are still in active or reserve duty. This is something that is part of our narrative, but also part of our country. If we don't defend ourselves, nobody is going to come and help us. So it's part of the texture of Israel being part of the army. Large numbers of our youth and young people are still active serving in the army. Unlike South Korea, Singapore and Taiwan, that they have active service for only men and only 2 to 1 year service, that they also need to defend their borders from active threats.
Okay.
The situation in Israel has been like that ever since Israel was alive in 1948.
Okay.
So we have no choice but to do that. And again, a lot of the tax money, a lot of the country's wealth is being directed to defense and army system. So I think this is one of the best reasons why we have such a good army. And as for very special defense system like Iron Dome, we have a very close connection between the technology, innovation, and startup ecosystem here in Israel and the army. This is why we are able to create such amazing technologies like Iron Dome and others.
Okay. In fact, every voice that we've spoken to from Israel has been in support of this attack, the joint attack from the United States and Israel. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Stay safe. We hope your family members are also safe. Thank you for joining us. I'm requesting all my panelists also to stay with us as we slip into a very short break here. We'll be right back. To stay with us. Welcome back and thank you for being tuned in. Abhijit, Ayer, Mitra is not with us. My guests continue to stay with us on the unfolding situation in Iran. In the latest information coming in as well, the strikes are continuing. The United States, with Trump going on to say that discussions will take place, that Iran is willing to talk and we are ready for talks. But Lieutenant General Asit Misri, you know, time and again when these questions come up and on the claims that Trump has made previously as well, is for a regime change in Iran. And he has been very, very clear about it. But time and again, as we discuss it, the question also comes in, how is it possible? Because the US has made it clear that there will not be boots on ground. Iran comes in with its own set of challenges. So is that really going to happen, a regime change? Is that a possibility? Because US has also said that it is for the people to bring in this kind of a change. Will that happen? Is that a realistic possibility or not?
Well, regime change is an extremely complex operation or an activity, because it is a combination of military operation combined with political activity. And so far, the US record of such regime changes in the past has not been very, praiseworthy. You look at the 2003, what happened in Iraq or Libya, Syria, they all landed up into very messy civil wars. So regime change inherently is an extremely complex, messy affair. Secondly, conventional wisdom and conventional knowledge does say that you need to have boots on ground. Third, you need to have an alternate leadership ready to fill in the void or vacuum that is likely to be created. My understanding is that with the amount of preparation that what the US and Israel has done, and that this is a war of choice for them. It's not something that has been thrust upon them or compelled upon them. My assumption is that they have some plan up their sleeve, which obviously has not been revealed at the moment. They seem to be in contact with some, factions within the existing government or alternate in the opposition or some elements within the IRGC, which is likely to provide an alternate form of government. And rest assured, I think their aim is to change throughout the existing regime and place a regime with which they can work with. It's not that they're looking for a paradigm of democratic transition in Iran. They are looking for a regime, as in case of Venezuela, they said, we want a regime with which we can work with. So I think that is going to be a limited aim, and rest we'll have to see how it unfolds. But I think a lot of things are happening behind the scene. And today, you have the capability of reaching out people, like the Starlink assets have been dropped so that you can remain in the internet connect with the common people, despite all the blanket bans imposed by the regime. Having said that, it's still very, very difficult because you may destroy the missile launching capability of the IRGC.
Okay.
But its capability to control population, you don't need so much of missiles, etc. You need very small light infantry, and that kind of power may still persist with the IRGC. So they'll have to, get a split within the IRGC to be able to do this.
And Iran is putting up quite a strong fight, and many also believe that with their targets in the Gulf region, it's not doing Iran any favors and it's getting further and further isolated. But they have also decided to close the Strait of Hormuz. It is going to have an impact globally as well. We'll talk about that. Before that, I also want to mention that Iran has also targeted UAE. What was believed to be the red line has been crossed. Multiple areas, including Oman, has also been targeted by Iran. And there are questions that are being raised. Why is it that Iran has decided to target these areas which nobody expected it to? Now, there are multiple reasons for it, multiple factors as well, including the Abraham Accords as well. Of course, many believe that UAE has also been struck as a message, a larger message that Iran wants to give out, that nothing is off the table. It is also the first Gulf state to normalize ties with Israel. So that messaging being very clear from Iran's side. And of course, Israel is the largest Gulf trade partner at $3.2 billion. In fact, it's a huge partner for Israel, and it has maintained ties with Israel despite the fallout over Gaza. So that's one of the biggest points, wanting to give out a message that nothing is off the table. Apart from that, it is also a strategic partner of the United States. It is the 11th largest U.S. defense customer by value, and of course, the U.S. bases as well in multiple locations in the UAE that have come under attack from Iran. And of course, the symbolic messaging as well, because Dubai is one of the locations that not many thought would be a target of Iran. It's the global hub of tourism as well. It's a symbol of wealth. It's a travel hub for the entire world, but that has also been targeted by Iran. It is a very clear signal that Iran is ready to give out this message to the world. So there are multiple questions that remain, and Ms. Wong, there will be repercussions of it. And while we speak about Strait of Hormuz, Iran has made it clear that it will be closed, and that will have repercussions for the entire world, in the United States as well. Is that something that the US is prepared for? And do you think we're going to see a complete tumble in the markets?
Just in a few short hours, we're going to see the Chinese markets open, and that's going to be our first indication to see whether or not there is going to be a worldwide tumble in crude oil. And we expect that to be. Now, I believe that Secretary Rubio, as well as the Pentagon, knew this was going to be the case and knew this was going to be the way that they pressure Xi Jinping to the negotiating table. Remember, President Trump and Xi Jinping, they meet later this month for trade talks. So So all of this tells me that all of it is by design. Look, President Trump said we have to strike and we have to strike soon. He did not want to wait another month or two until after the Xi Jinping meeting. He wanted to pressure China as well as Russia to the negotiating table. And what better way of doing that if you're going to cut off their oil supply? So I think all of this tells me that that's what this is about. So you had Venezuela, you had Cuba, and now you have Iran. So all of this is to have the best, I guess, trade deal for the U.S. I know with India, we were in a lot of kind of restricted talks as well over the last couple of months. Luckily, that's kind of come to an end, hopefully. But, you know, this is what the worldwide view looks like at this point, is because President Trump wants all of these moving parts to benefit the U.S. somehow. So you have to look at it from, you have to pull out and look at it from a macro view. I'm really interested to seeing whether or not there's going to be a run on gas. I know here in the United States, this Sunday morning, as people are waking up to the news of further attacks on the U.S., people are running to the gas station. My husband just sent me a photo of the gas stations here in Miami. There are long lines of people wanting the cheaper gas. We're not going to run out of gas, so I don't want to put any fears into Americans, but it is going to jump up predictably by tomorrow when the markets are fully open.
Okay, all right. And the coming hours are going to be extremely crucial on what's going to happen, because for now it doesn't look like there is a let-up. Of course, Trump, the US president, has said that Iran is ready for talks, but even as we speak, there are counter-attacks that are still taking place. To stay with us, the president of Iran has also said that Iran's Interim Leadership Council has begun work and that it will forcefully crush the enemy's bases. This is the claim that has been made by Iran. Listen in.
قانون اساسی امروز شورای موقت رهبری کار خودش رو شروع کرده و به حول قوه خدا با قدرت مسیر امام رو و مسیر رهبر عزیز رو و مسیر تمام حق طلبان دنیا رو با قدرت ادامه خواهیم داد و نیروهای مسلح جمهوری اسلامی ایران با قدرت در برهم کوبیدن پایگاه‌های دشمنان در اقدامند و اقدام خواهند کرد و دشمنان رو مثل همیشه ناامید خواهند نمود.
In fact, we have more details now coming in. First, you heard what the president had to say. So Iran has made it clear that it will retaliate. Now, is it false bravado coming in from Iran? They have claimed that they will forcefully crush the enemy's bases. We have another post as well that has been shared by the U.S. Central Command. Last night, the U.S. B-2 stealth bombers armed with bombs struck Iran's hardened ballistic missile facilities. Take a look. So, Ms. Wilf, you heard the response from Iran as well, and they have said that they will fight. But more importantly, on the question of regime change, are we looking at a more ideologically stronger leadership that could come in Iran, or is this the new normal that we're seeing in Middle East and the world will have to make peace with it?
I don't see how, I don't know about the world, but certainly its immediate neighbors. I don't see, now that they've seen what the Islamic Republic does when it really shows its true face, the notion that they can remain neutral, that they continue to accommodate, that they can live with it, as you said, I don't think that's an option anymore. And the notion, I mean, the Islamic Republic is a radical regime, the notion that it could be anything else. And we also know that the Iranian people, you know, there used to be the jokes, if you want to make good capitalists, send them to the Soviet Union. In the same way, if you want to make modern secular people, make sure they live 47 years after an oppressive Islamic Republic. Anyone who actually lived under an Islamic regime is much, much, much less excited about the idea. So regime change in Iran means something on par with the fall of the Soviet Union. It means the fall of an entire ideology, a way, the idea that you can have this as a kind of desirable way of life. It's not for nothing that they are attacking the UAE, even though the UAE doesn't officially have an American base, because The UAE represents everything that they are not. And they see that the UAE is something that attracts Muslims, that attracts many in the Arab world. They want to live in a country that is modern and forward-looking and tolerant. And the Islamic Republic is the exact mirror image. Its citizens are not experiencing prosperity. Its citizens are going from worse to worse. So I think we're also seeing here really a battle of ideologies like it was at the end of the Cold War between an open society and the repressive Soviet Union. In the same way, the Islamic Republic, like all regimes that ultimately prioritize the destruction of others over building for themselves, will collapse. And we're seeing here a regime that is lashing out, knowing that the collapse is near.
And in this post-Khamenei Middle East, is Israel expecting, or is this a possibility that we could be looking at where Iran accepts or recognizes Israel as a legitimate state?
If Iran will actually, if the people of Iran will have the government they wish and deserve, I actually think that if you look at Iran, it has a lot of the elements that make it a textbook case for a successful transition for democracy. It's not in Afghanistan. It's not in Iraq. It has a highly educated population, a stressed but existing middle class. Its population is not too young. It has a coherent history, sense of culture. It can make a successful transition to democracy, maybe in the form of a constitutional monarchy. And we know that the people of Iran have been among the friendliest to the Jewish people and to Israel, certainly in the diaspora, but also from within Israel. Many Israeli colleagues are getting messages from Iranians within Iran, thanking Israel for bringing down Khamenei, hoping for a day where Israel and Iran can go back to being great friends. So clearly this will not happen under an Islamic Republic, but once Iran is free from this Islamic Republic and can become, Iran can become what it deserves, could be a secular republic, a constitutional monarchy, a democracy, yes, they will definitely be one of Israel's greatest friends and allies, and I will say to the West as well, and I have no doubt to India.
Okay, all right. But Lieutenant General, is it too idealistic? Because, yes, there were protests that were taking place in Iran, and there were many within Iran who wanted a regime change. But will they be in support of a U.S. intervention like this? Because multiple guests joining us on the show have also been speaking about, yes, there is anger against the supreme leader, but Iranians are also very, very nationalistic, and they would not want an intervention like this. So what happens next for Iran? Will the people accept this? And such a change, is it a possibility in Iran?
See, this is a regime that has not been very popular. Recently, in month of December and January, you had popular uprisings.
Yes.
And, different counts are, of people have been killed, ranging from 15,000 to 30,000. So it's not a regime that is extremely popular. What is lacking is an alternate leadership which can mobilize masses at this time as the vacuum is gradually created. And I'm sure there are some behind the scenes activities going on to create that kind of alternate leadership. So for a revolution to succeed, you need two kinds of leadership. You need inspirational leadership and you need an organizational leadership. Inspirational leadership is some, charismatic figure around which the people can rally around. Somebody who inspires masses. But you also need leadership at the organizational level so that, you can structure your movement. And they say that for a revolution to succeed, it needs to have, for it to be viable, it needs to have critical mass. Conversely, there is a paradox that unless you have likelihood of a revolution succeeding, you are unlikely to have a viable mass. So it's a complex kind of political-military activity at the moment, and we'll have to see how it unfolds. So far, the asymmetry of capabilities between Israel and US combined and Iran has been, unbelievable. And therefore, while conventional wisdom says that you need boots on grounds, but seeing the kind of way it has unfolded, we went to just 24 hours into this war.
Yes.
And in first 6 hours, first 2-3 hours, you have completely neutralized the top leadership of Iran, whether it is political leadership, it is theocratic leadership, or professional military leadership. So let's see how it unfolds over 48, 72 hours.
But Lieutenant General, the question also comes in, like you mentioned, within not even the 24 hours, within just about 6 to 10 hours, you had the top leadership being eliminated completely. There are questions on whether a succession plan had already been put in place in Iran or not. Currently, you have Iran, which is firing at multiple locations. But the question still remains, where are these directions coming from? Is it a headless military that is looking at every target that it can? Or has it been prioritized? Do we know anything about how Iran's response has come in? Is it a succession plan and military targets that have been predetermined? Or are we now looking at a headless military that is just firing everywhere?
I think it is a combination of both. You see, the president of Iran has come on public media and has made a statement. You just telecast President Pezeshkian's statement. There have also been formal announcements that an interim council of 3 people headed by the president, the chief justice, and one more member of the advisory or the experts committee are now the troika that is leading Iran. But at the same time, what is the operational leadership and command and control of IRGC with the kind of domination? And see, we are only seeing the physical destruction that is visible. There is a complete, I'm sure there is a complete capture of the cyberspace over Iran. And therefore, the ability of IRGC to do an operational level communications for command and control is extremely suspect. And therefore, a lot of these, some of the middle level leaders may be acting on their own.
And what about the threat of the axis of resistance? Are we also going to see proxies being activated?
Where is that axis? That axis of resistance has already been decimated long before, the current operation started. Hezbollah is today not in a position to do anything. Houthis may be able to,
so that's not much of a threat is what you're telling us. But
that is a group in Iraq which is claiming to support Iran. But how effective are they? What is their competence and capability is all suspect. And they have also been reportedly targeted by Israeli aircraft.
All right. So, like we mentioned, the next few hours are going to be crucial. Are there going to be talks between Iran and the United States, and what happens in those talks are going to be very, very interesting and crucial for the entire world. Thanking experts for joining us on the broadcast.